Hello, Christine.
Hey.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to this YouTube channel. Today we have the pleasure to be speaking with Christine Hillier. Christine is American, and I'm sure you are not prepared to listen to what this mother has to say. Christine is American, and she left America to go to Sweden. In the meanwhile, she had to stop in UK. She seeks refugee in UK, and UK only took advantage of everything that she had: her life, her health, and her baby. So Christine, she was basically, UK took her passports, her and her baby, I suppose her baby too. Christine can clear that later on.
Right.
They coerced her into an asylum, and they threatened her with persecution if she would want to get her passport back. She was only tortured, she was denied basic human needs, and today she does not have her baby because she was put for adoption. She does not know where he is because doesn't see her baby for more than 3 years now. She was arrested in UK. That's alright, Christine, no worries. It happens. She was arrested in UK with no papers. She was put into a psychiatric ward, and this nightmare has lasted more than 2 years. In the meanwhile, her father has committed suicide, and when after this nightmare that lasts 2 years, she goes back to America from where she was living to a better life. And America only says to her when she asks for help, this is an international problem and we cannot investigate, neither police, neither social services from UK. Basically, is a mother with a 40 years old. She's an engineer. She does not have no criminal record, and she does not have no mental problems. But she has been through a nightmare, and Christine is so strong that she's here, and all she wants is her baby. Christine, thank you so much for being in here and to trust me to share your story, your horrendous story. Can you say to the people what the nightmare that you have been through, please?
From the beginning, from which point? My story is complex and very disorienting and extremely traumatic.
Christine, you were going to Sweden and you stopped in UK. They took the passports from you and no justification was given to you.
No vacation? No notification. So they notified me after. Ears are terrible. So they pretended to extend help. So I sought help, and I did file asylum. And so the language of me saying that I needed to seek asylum, they assumed that that meant that I agreed to hand over my passports without explicitly having that conversation. And I did not consent to giving over my passports. That was a surprise, and I had no control over that. That exploited my basic human rights to take out of
they threatened you. When you ask for the passports back, they threaten you.
So at first, it was all very confusing to me. So I didn't immediately ask for it back because I was also fearful of persecution. Mm-hmm. So it was very brainwashing, and it took me some time to realize that I was in a prison. So that was very brainwashing. Mm-hmm. So these people that you would think that they would be reputable because they represent the United Kingdom or those affiliated with working with the United Kingdom. And it took me some time. First, I had questions. They didn't have time to answer anything. They put me in a taxi with a man who did not speak English. And so I was forced to follow him in fear of persecution in the U.S.
And you went to Coventry straight away, or you were
London first for about almost 10 days at quarantine, basically. So
Coventry.
For the time that we were in quarantine, it was immediately a state of homelessness because we didn't have appropriate access to food. There were other people complaining as tourists, like nursing mothers with children in quarantine. There were other issues with that short 10 days versus the amount of time that we were in asylum. I kept hoping that things would get better, but they continued to get worse. We were in a state of, like, the United Kingdom made us homeless as soon as we were there. I had no right to lease, no right to work. They sent me a letter while I was in quarantine that said, okay, you're going to follow to this location for housing. If you don't go there, consider yourself homeless, was their exact words. And so I thought, consider yourself homeless. So you have this illusion of housing. I mean, I had not yet had suitable housing yet. And without suitable housing, they are threatening, if I don't go to some place, that I'm going to be... That, homelessness is supposed to be worse than the state that you're already in.
Christine, just to make it clear, you have not committed no crime in America. You don't have any criminal record. Nothing that is against you. You have not committed a crime in America. So you were going for a better life in Sweden. And based on the situation that was back in America, and UK definitely took advantage of your vulnerable situation. They take the passports from you and they coerce you into this situation. They threaten you if you want your passports back. And from previous conversation, I understand that in America, when your mother is asking as well for the passports, and yourself, when you're asking for the passports from the government, UK says to America that they lost your passport. And you are being put in a situation where you are denied the basic human needs. And this means you are put in a place to live with mold, where there is no food, where there is single men that you have been told that they are famous rapists, and you are with a baby. You don't have a place to cook. You don't have a refrigerator. Is this?
They wouldn't allow me to purchase my own cooking appliances. Nothing. They wouldn't allow me to purchase my own refrigerator. They forced me into a contract upon arrival, which made no sense. If I don't agree to this contract, what does it mean? Well, I have no right to lease. So it's supposed to mean consider yourself homeless. So the United Kingdom sets you up for a situation where it's just weird because it's between the United Kingdom and a contract with Serco.
Yeah.
So it's
Serco is
the split liability.
Serco is a UK corporation that is behind all of that. And now you know that they are known for fraud, for human trafficking.
Ethical business practices.
And the way that you found to try to help yourself was in a hospital to ask for food and to say the conditions that you have been going through with your son. And there is actually a doctor from Birmingham Children's Hospital that has written a letter where he says that the police and the Coventry City Council, they were negligent to protect you and your son.
So Birmingham Children's Hospital, the letter specifically says the mold is a hazard and they recommend reassessment for accommodation. It was an urgent reassessment. They advised rehousing. They mentioned other hazards and then they diagnosed us as homeless. Yeah. So that was a very brainwashing thing to come to terms with the fact that we, even though we were being threatened with homelessness if we didn't follow these people that were making us homeless. That was very brainwashing and confusing because sometimes a roof over your head is more homeless than actually being homeless. Like, so if I had been on the streets, I would be able to have better access to basic human needs than being in a box. So they moved us around 8 times in 4.5 months. And there were all these access issues. They would stick me with people that had no background checks.
Your son
like
was
the rapist that showed up right before I got there.
Your son was not given appropriate food. Was even given food that you said that he was
allergic to eggs, wheat, cow's milk, dogs, cashews, peanuts, and so and then also he was at an age, he was just over a year when we got there, where he had a baby preference. Like, no matter what I did, I couldn't get him to eat certain foods because of the texture, or because he wanted to do it himself and grab it himself, or otherwise he was going to starve. Like, I mean, babies do that sometimes, especially when you're forced to move 8 times in 4.5 months. And he was constipated.
That's what they have been put you through, was starvation.
Yeah. They, on audio recording, Serco told me that potatoes were a good source of protein for us for 2 meals of 3 meals a day. And so I tried to report that to, I didn't know who to report that to because the police don't care. And then when I reported to UK Action Fraud, UK Action Frauds, they're like, who are they defrauding? I have an audio recording from UK Action Fraud where they say that it is, they can feed me nothing but potatoes, essentially, and there's nothing wrong with that. And so they were telling me, a manager at Coventry Hill Hotel for Serco told me that potatoes were a suitable source of protein, and that's actually wrong. If
that's
you just
wrong. That's wrong. Obviously,
at the requirements from World Health Organization, if doctors' recommendations. I had a letter from a nutritionist. So one of the times I went to the hospital to report the human rights violations, we got a nutritionist. We stayed at the hospital for a few days, maybe 3 days, and by the end of it, I was able to expedite a letter for exactly what our nutrition needed to be. So, I mean, that tells you if they aren't able to meet our nutritional requirements by a letter from a nutritionist, then that is not suitable. We should not be there. And they should at least acknowledge that it is not suitable, but they just continue to gaslight and brainwash to pretend like the problem was me. They would ignore the letters.
Christine, the main issue is that you have not committed a crime, and they are holding you in that situation that is horrible because you are breastfeeding your son, you are not given food, you are not given neither security, neither...
They gave us food that we were allergic to. And so I was breastfeeding, so I can't eat things that my son is allergic to.
Were you given 3 meals? No, none of that. It's completely... I have seen a video that you have shared on YouTube. And
gave us hash browns. They were giving us hash browns. They took out... Okay, so once they took out all the things that we were allergic to, there wasn't adequate nutrition left over. So there were potatoes.
Yeah, but why you are on this situation? Why are they holding you? This is itself is a criminal situation. They took the passports from you without the justification, and you are put into this situation that has no conditions whatsoever. They put you and your son at danger. They put you in Coventry. I went to look in, where is this? This is near Birmingham. It's in the middle of nowhere in UK. You are not English, you are American, you want to go to Sweden and you ask for refugee whilst you are in UK to go to Sweden, and they put you in the middle of nowhere in UK in a horrible condition, and because you start complaining about those situations, They say that you are uncooperative. They've started punish you for asking for help.
Yes, they completely falsified the narrative, covering up the human rights violations, and they started to create this fictitious narrative.
How can you cope, Christine, when you are trying to do the best for your son and they keep brainwashing you, and the ones they are supposing there to help you, you start seeing that they are taking advantage of you. I keep repeating the word advantage because it is what it is. They are somehow making money on you and your son, and you can see that you are being starved, and there is no way that you can ask for help. There is no one helping. Your mother is in America. She doesn't have no news from you. How can you cope with these?
I was very focused on a solution, and that was part of the brainwashing. They kept pretending as if I could do something about it. And also, I had money, so there was no reason. What was crazy was that I could afford to have my own place. I've always been able to afford my own rent, but because they didn't give me a right to lease, and then they put me in a prison that they didn't tell me was a prison, I had to work through the brainwashing of that false narrative that they were trying to help me. And
you can ask for help, because if you are not in the evening there, they will report you as missing.
Yes.
And
they don't tell you that going into things. Like while you're at the airport, they do not tell you the rules of asylum whatsoever. And you slowly get it through workers at Serco who have no credibility. Who are these people? What kind of training do they have? They actually have no training to be working with children. So it was just so very bizarre. And I've actually taken some training to be a teacher in the United States. So that there's requirements for training if you access children, if you take care of any children. And so everything that they were doing was wrong. It was in conflict with
helping. Everything was in conflict with help. They were not helping you.
It was very exploitive. So they were Estelle Hogan was a worker for Serco, and she was working through her own brainwashing, because as an employee for Serco, we're naive to think that people do things the right way. And then, she observed what they were doing. And
Christine, when you try to create some relations and try to help, they keep moving you. And that's how I perceive. In a way for you to not establish a relationship with no one, to not get some help from no one. They keep moving, and this happens.
So true. And it's weird because intent is a very interesting thing. So, I mean, you're not just dealing with one person, you're dealing with a number of stakeholders throughout the government and the corporations affiliated with the government. So this is, and the procedures, the bureaucratic processes. So those algorithms, my bachelor's is in electrical engineering. I've taken software architecture from the University of Texas at Austin. At that time, it was the 8th or 9th best rated electrical engineering graduate college. And so they teach you about designs of systems. I am professionally trained to design systems. And so when you look at the priorities of this system, if you suspect that they maliciously did all these things, but they will twist it around and they'll falsify you delusional, paranoid.
Yeah.
But it's like my degree program at the University of Oklahoma in electrical engineering is ABET accredited, globally recognized. So they train engineers. So ABET they create these programs for engineers to recognize the public safety needs.
Yeah.
So this is a public safety need. They disempowered me. I had no voice.
Yeah. So when you are trying to go back to, so let me say some dates. So they took the passports from you in the 17th of March 2021, and in about
Correct.
Yeah, when they blame you, when you're asking for help, saying that you are not in good conditions, it's hazardous conditions, they report to you as incooperative, and they punish you, and they even threaten you that they're going to take your son from you. And at the end, in the 28th of July 2021, they actually, the police, the social services and paramedics, they went in there and they took your son from you. And like you said, they spoke about adoption. And after, in 22 of December 2022, you have been arrested in Heathrow Airport with no warrant by the London Metropolitan Police. And America, because you are an American citizen, Americans should have been told about this arrest, but instead, they don't say anything at all. Your mother in America contacts the American government and asks about you and say that you have disappeared. They don't know nothing back in America. You have been arrested for more than 5 days.
Correct.
And then they put you in a psychiatric ward.
Correct.
If this is not torture, I do not know what torture is.
They forced harmful chemicals for no reason under the guise of care. Something called risperidone. There were different ways that they would force that on me, and that was physically very violent. I sustained injuries. I began fighting back, which is my lawful right to do. And so they cherry pick this false narrative that I am a violent, delusional, paranoid person, which is a completely fictitious narrative. And luckily, after 3 months of unlawful imprisonment and a ward, Dr. Hyland...
3 months.
They repeatedly put me in wards. They repeatedly put me in jails. There was another, I don't know if you've heard of a social worker named Carol Woods who spoke out. I've heard that was something that they also did to her.
Yeah. There is a reason why I'm in Portugal.
Yeah, so they move you around. They break up your sleep. And then by the time you get to an assessment, you're at a lack of sleep. They ask you what time it is. You don't have a watch. It's dark looking, but they ask you these questions to find out if you know what is going on. But after you go through that experience, it's just completely set up.
I know. I can really feel what you are saying, because I think I haven't shared that with you. When I was in the hospital, whilst they were going to court, I had 2 doctors, and Leon was present. I had 2 doctors, and one asked me, in the room where you are, you have a window, don't you?
So your question?
I have a window, and I'm like, I'm not sure what's the correct answer. Do I have a window? And if I have a window, maybe I shouldn't say that I have a window because I can jump, and that's what they are going to. Maybe I should say that I don't have a window. I'm like,
yeah, I don't understand the intention to, you have to constantly, because they have a history of making poor decisions at your expense. It's very exploitive. They are not credible. So you have to, as a normal, natural response as a human being, to assess the risk. And so when they ask you these questions, you have to figure out, what is their intent, and what is their capacity? What right do they have to your private information? What are they going to do with it?
Yeah.
How will they manipulate this? I mean, that sounds paranoid and delusional, but after, not delusional, paranoid.
Yeah.
But it's suspicious. It's a reasonable suspicion after a history of these stakeholders of government doing these things, abusing their power under the guise of care.
Yeah. And this nightmare has lasted 2 years in UK. Now, when you finally you are able to run away from UK and go back to America, what does America say to you when you ask for help? Can they actually get your son back, or they deny help?
There are many stakeholders of the U.S., and so I have reached out to every possible avenue I can think of, and everyone's pointing to each other. There's a systemic problem. I mean, everybody is familiar with the case of Epstein and his human trafficking of children. So if, there's a documentary on Netflix about it, and he had paid off the police to make sure that they notified him before they did searches of his home. So if we have corruption like that, and so if there's no, I mean, if there were victims that came forward, and why didn't their voices get through to someone with authority to do something about it? And it's inherent in our procedures. We have certain gatekeepers of government, and they are not allowing a pathway for victims of human trafficking. I called the human trafficking hotline in the U.S. They specifically define human trafficking. The only human trafficking that they see, so they have a blind spot. The only human trafficking that they see or are willing to talk about is for sexual exploitation or forced labor. So that's one of many blind spots. There's just all these blind spots of all these different stakeholders. It's a complex, very multifaceted problem where everybody's got these blind spots. They just do not recognize human trafficking. They don't recognize illegal adoption scandals. To approach an illegal adoption scandal in a family court or care proceeding, in a court that for whatever reason is compromised or rigged, that is not, it is all stacked up against you. So that, human trafficking is human trafficking, and so that there needs to be a pathway to find protections and to safeguard parents and children, families.
I want to go back in one point. Earlier on, you said that you had some money and you were denied even to use your own money. And when you are in UK and you go to a hotel with conditions and able to have food and have a safe place, Serco, so that entity in UK, they didn't like it, so they punish you, and you had your son back then. They reported you as a missing person, and that's then when they went to that place and they took your son from you.
Correct. So one of the ways that they retaliate is they falsify you missing. So that's very confusing as an independent, capable human being, a fit parent to my child. Why would a corporation have the ability to say that I'm missing when I say that I'm not missing? Especially when I have evidence to substantiate that there's hazards in the prison that they're forcing me to live in. And I have a letter, from a doctor diagnosing homelessness, and I immediately took us to an Airbnb. So I stupidly initiated an investigation with social services when I went to the hospital, not knowing about these illegal adoption scandals, having faith in authority.
Yeah, basically, you ask for while you were in the hospital, you have been told if you wanted to help from social services, and not knowing the reality, you said yes, please. Yes. Social services, they were in there supposedly to help you. Little you knew that
They do not provide any help. And what was crazy, I didn't need financial help. I just needed to not be a prisoner of a hazardous system.
Christian, can we in whatever you want to say about it, because you only say whatever you want to say, can you just explain a little more the reason why you wanted to go to Sweden and what happened back in America, please?
No problem. So before I had any reason to file, seeking help, before I needed help from my own government, I lived in Australia on a tourist visa. So I was globally free. I was setting up Airbnbs internationally. And then I had gotten into UC Berkeley for a master's degree in data science. And so that, it was online, so I could do that from anywhere in the world. Yeah. So I had all this global freedom, and I came to the US and I visited someone that I had, I'm scared to talk about this, okay. Because I'm also a victim of judicial terrorism. Okay. So it's very, this man maliciously and fraudulently portrays himself as a father to my child. So I continue to be judicially terrorized by this dangerous man who...
So in America you ask for the help, and even you were seeing that twist of the things, and instead of helping you because you have the truth, because you want to protect your own son, and what you are seeing is that they are twisting the things, and the only solution that you see is to leave America for a better future for your son. And at the end, what they do in UK, stealing your own son, is horrendous. Is like So
the bigger pattern. So I'm part of an email subscription to Support Not Separate. They are great. They unify together globally to collect all these stories from all these families that have been destroyed by these illegal adoption scandals. And they point out that victims of stalking, victims of domestic violence, these things, rather than giving help, they are leveraged to dislodge children from families. So that's what happened to me. So I don't consider myself a victim of domestic violence. I consider myself a victim of stalking, and there's more awareness of stalking. I've started to notice that they're making documentaries on Netflix explaining the problems of stalking, and this malicious man tried to sell me my child for $15,000 on audio and text after trying to falsify reasons to put me in prison, to punish me, destroy and devastate my life. And he said that my child would be, he predicted this, that my child would be ripped from my arms right when I least expect it. That's when he will act. Sleep well, you worthless F. So maybe I shouldn't be talking about these details because it might be triggering and traumatic for people, and I'm so sorry. I think when I try to explain this, I'm just not believed by people. Don't believe you, and then so I try to stick to factual details, and so I'm in that habit and routine of speaking my truth, and so it's really difficult to speak your truth when...
Yeah, Christian, let me, if you allow me, I would like to share with the audience the video that you have done, because has some image and they are very powerful and they speak for themselves. And there is an image where they can see your baby and you, and how pretty you are with your son, and it's possible to see that there is love. And unfortunately, that then the people there will be able to see the video, the part where your son is being taken. So I will share in here. This video is about 3 minutes, but I think it's important.
Okay, thank you.
Let me get the sound in here.
With unimaginable abuse and injustice at the... This is a story...
Oh, gosh.
Obtenha até 50% de desconto e beneficie da entrega grátis.
Anyway.
This is a story about a person seeking refuge in the United Kingdom, only to be met with unimaginable abuse and injustice at the hands of those who were supposed to protect them. This is their story, as told from the perspective of the mother.
My family and I heard horror stories about the immigration and asylum systems, but never in our wildest dreams do we expect the reality to be this bad. Our journey started with a layover on our way to Sweden, where UK border control took our passports without any legal justification and coerced us into an asylum system run by a corporation known for fraud and human rights violations, Serco. Serco not only threatened us with persecution if we tried to get our passports back, but also made it clear that we were not in an asylum, but rather a concentration camp-like prison. We were denied basic human needs such as cleaning, cooking, and refrigeration facilities, and were tortured by being blocked from these necessities. As the situation became dire and we were in dire need of help, I reported these human rights violations to the hospital as we were facing starvation. But instead of addressing these issues, Serco began covering up their human rights violations by escalating their abuse to include fraud, attempting to take my child away. They even went as far as to meet with Coventry City Council and West Midlands Police under false pretenses using Section 47 of the CARE Act, and continue to force us to move a total of 8 times in 4.5 months, all while falsely claiming that we were the problem. West Midlands Police and Coventry City Council were also negligent of mold and other serious hazards to our lives, reported by a children's doctor in a letter from Birmingham Children's Hospital. Despite my pleas for help, Serco, Coventry City Council, and West Midlands Police, in concert, ignored my pleas for help and falsified them as uncooperative because we could not enthusiastically agree to hazardous conditions. They falsely labeled us as a missing person and, quote, uncooperative in order to illegally enter our Airbnb where we were safe from the hazards of the asylum and had access to basic human needs. Police and social services harassed us and my child for 3 hours before abducting my child without legal justification, erasing all footage of the crimes committed against me and my child that day. The system continues to refuse to return my child without legal justification, leaving me to suffer the unimaginable pain of losing a child to the very people who were supposed to protect us. We must demand justice for refugees and children and hold those in power accountable for their actions. No one should have to go through this type of abuse and injustice by the power that has a duty of care to these children. The human rights of immigrants and children should be respected and protected, and this story serves as a stark reminder of the failures of the current system and the urgent need for change.
I'll be honest with you, I have cried watching this video a few times because I haven't been through hell. But Christine, I think you have been through, I don't know, 3 times worse, a nightmare, horrible what they have done to you. They not just have taken your baby from you, as they put you in a torture situation and alone. I have been on that situation for days, and my parents, they were on that situation, and they it was horrible for them, not knowing how I was, how their grandson was, and I cannot go back to England because everyone knows in my family that there is a real risk that they can punish me for all the circus that I did in Portugal, because I broke the silence in Portugal, and I broke the silence for many other Portuguese mothers that are in England, and everyone knows what I have done. And it was so bad that even the judge in court said, I'm quite surprised that no one from Portugal is representing this mother in here, and there is a circus in Portugal. So the judge, they knew how big was the case. And I know that mothers, they have been in prison for asking for help. And I learned about your case. I saw your videos asking for help. I heard your mother on a phone call with America asking for help. I don't know where my daughter is. Your father has committed suicide because he's completely powerless to protect his daughter and his grandson. I am lost for words, because what I have done to you is beyond anything that people can imagine, and you don't know where your son is. It has been 3 years without knowing where your son is. You are still fighting, and they are taking advantage probably from your family now, and they still want to make money on you and your son.
Yes, they have this grooming process where they ask for your friends, your family, under this fictitious narrative of child protection, under the guise of care.
Your son was
There's so many tactics. I wish we could get out like all the tactics that they use to do this adoption scandal. But I guess it's too detailed for the purpose of this video. But maybe in the future we could do that to bring awareness.
Your son was taken with 1 year and a half, I suppose. Yeah, 1 year and a half.
1.5 years old.
Let me do this question, and I'm sorry to making the question.
Fine.
By now, do you think he still? I'm sure that he remembers you. You are the mother, but they definitely broke the bond. You have not seen where your son is. You don't know how he is, with who he is.
He was too young to remember me, yet, he knows that he's supposed to have a mother. So the last time he really saw me was at 2 years old.
He knows he has a mother.
Thank you.
Of course he does.
I don't hear, they really do not share information with me, but I was able to hear that he got a picture of me, and then
That's all right.
He wouldn't let them have it back, and he ran around trying to show everyone, this is my mommy.
So he was proud to say that the picture on the picture was his mummy, and then they took the picture from him?
No, they said, like, when they tried to get it back, that he wouldn't give it back. And so he recognizes at that, throughout the first year and a half of his life, I had very long hair. Mm-hmm. And so he recognizes dark hair. He'll magazines or something. Anyone with long dark hair, he recognizes the association with his mom.
Is it all right to say his name?
Yes. His name is Christian Hillier.
And what's his date of birth?
So I'm hesitant to share his date of birth.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I should do that.
I'm sorry. That's good that you are aware of those things, because sometimes, that's all right. Because
he was born in 2018. 2018. Yeah.
Yeah, 2018. Yeah. You see, obviously we have to have the faith, but are you being helped? You have financial stability to go to try to get your son. You have the conditions to get your son back, but obviously they are they are holding your son from you. You don't even know if your son is in UK, if he's in America. America is not doing anything for you, like Portugal has not done anything for me. So is it correct to probably state that America is being complicit with UK on child trafficking, on human trafficking? Because
the Department of State is complicit in human trafficking. They absolutely are. I reported my human trafficking to them December 7th of 2022. And it took them, I needed emergency passports, and they couldn't even respond to my passport application where I notified them of our human trafficking until February. So, they allowed, the police arrested me that same day or within 24 hours without a warrant. So, what is going on there? They seem to be working together, but I just don't have access to those private conversations. Mm-hmm. There's, these alleged court cases, but you're never served by mail or in person any documentation with a signature. There's no authenticity to these alleged orders. There's no due process.
Yeah. So there is not sealed, nothing is signed. So that's something that I keep seeing on the people that I know about, the stories from the mothers. So the papers, they don't have signatures, they don't have seals. So it's nothing is real, isn't it? There is nothing.
Exactly. And how did it start? So even if something eventually has a seal, it didn't start off with a seal. These orders that started off this false narrative didn't. And so there's one document that has a seal at the very end, but still no signature. And then so I tried to reach out to all these authorities, and they are not transparent. They cover up what's going on. They won't mail me documentation. Yeah. They won't mail me anything with a signature. And then so when I talked to the Department of State, tried to say, they made a claim of child protection. So he who makes the claim carries the burden. There were no, I have clear evidence that police contradict each other. There's all this contradiction in their reports. They have no integrity. They have no credibility. But there's no process for me to be able to get that to anyone with authority.
Yeah, because even on those 3 months that you were on that psychiatric ward, at the end, they say that you don't have no mental problems.
They give me a clean bill of health, signed by Dr. Hyland, and they said, I don't need any medication. I do not suffer. They explicitly say I do not suffer from delusion.
Did they let you go back to America, or you managed to run away to America?
I felt like I managed to run away from America because I kept repeatedly trying to get to the airport, and then they would catch me.
They have arrested
bring me back to the ward. So they would repeatedly arrest me. It wasn't just one time that they caught me in London, and brought me back to Clockview mental ward.
I can understand that the people, when they are listening to us, unfortunately, the people, they might say, no, there is more to it. No, there is more in here. A mother is not just arrested just like that. The police just don't do this.
They hide under privacy.
There is more to it, but the end, what I can say is, who in the world is doing child trafficking and who is doing woman trafficking? And when the police or someone in the government in America says that we cannot investigate police, neither social services, so who is the best people to do actually child trafficking and woman trafficking? Who are the people that they will never be investigated?
Those with impunity to do harm under the guise of care.
So people, they have to open their eyes, and everything that Christine wants is her son back. And actually, Christine would like probably, would you like to get this opportunity for someone that is watching, and would you like to ask for people to give you the opportunity to speak in America, to bloggers, to whoever has a YouTube channel with more people than I have, to give you voice, please? Would you like to share even your email?
Yes. So when I was being judicially terrorized, I created an email, clifford.d.hullins@gmail.com. But I'm the only person, I'm not going to finish that sentence because I am judicially terrorized. But it's a safe email to send me things.
Okay, can you repeat that email again, please?
Clifford, which is CLIFFORD .D as in Delta .Hullins, which is HOLLINS @gmail.com.
Right, so if you are watching this video, and if you have a YouTube channel, and if you expose medical kidnap or social services in America, Christine would very appreciate to expose her case to you, and hopefully her story will get bigger in America in a way that she can get the support and the help from someone to try to get her son back, because her son is somewhere in UK or America, we don't know actually. So Christine, are you working at the moment? Is it possible for you to be working at the moment with all of these?
It's challenging. I manage an Airbnb and I work remotely, so I have people who work for me to help me with that. But I do have free time for this cause, and I am trying to recover from all of this, get back into my normal routines. There's just, it's complex because I don't know where my child is, where he will be long term, and so that it's really difficult for me to make life decisions when I'm still hoping to recover him.
Yeah. You just know that you cannot go back to UK, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely a risk. I cannot go back to the UK. One thing that stuck out when you mentioned, these tactics that the alleged authorities, but they're really some of it's systemic, some of it's malicious. It's together, it's a ring of human trafficking. That's what it is. And but how do you prove that as a parent who's falsified as negligent, a risk of harm to the child? What about the inconsistencies of these authorities? There's all these inconsistencies. I can prove that. So where is there evidence to substantiate their claim against me? There is no evidence to substantiate. They say, oh, it's a private case, so they don't have to show that. But I am bringing to the surface. I'm exposing their contradictions, the way that they cover up the 3 hours of video footage of them stealing my child. Why would they do that? Isn't transparency important? Why would they hide that from everyone? And then also, why would they contradict themselves? Because I've requested investigations of West Midlands Police through the IOCP, and I, as a foreigner, I don't remember the names of all these organizations that allegedly investigate. But in these investigative reports, there's a disclosure unit or something like that. They contradict each other. There's one report that says, it's been over a year. After a year, this footage doesn't exist anymore. So that implies it's erased. They've erased it. But then a later report then says that they are withholding it due to an ongoing investigation. So what is this ongoing investigation? It's been years. Out of everyone in the world, I mean, a parent to a child, you would think that that person would have some kind of right to know that there's an investigation that even exists. So where's the evidence to substantiate that this case exists? And like, how could that cover up 3 hours of video footage where I'm alleging human trafficking? This is, and I have evidence to support human trafficking. These are inconsistencies. So yeah, how can you report human trafficking to the people doing the human trafficking?
You cannot. You cannot. It's just impossible. UK does not have to have your son. If there was any concerns, which one there is nothing written, which one there is nothing, they would have to give your son back to you in America. It is an American problem, not UK problem. So they are stealing your child. Is and the main issue is that not just the main public, it's hard for them to understand, because even that I have been through what I have been through, it is hard for me to even, I never wanted to be on your shoes, because you have been starved, you were breastfeeding your son, you could not be eating certain kinds of food, otherwise your kid would get allergic to it. You saw that your kid was starting to have constipation, so you were starting to have health problems due to conditions that you was in, and there is no one helping. You go to the hospital and then they punish you for you to ask for help. You ask for the social service help, they go and they manipulate and they say that you have mental issues. So they are twisting everything. It's disgraceful. This is horrible, and now no one is helping you.
After they stole my child, they moved me very far away from my child in this essentially prison. I had no control over where I could be. And so it was a 4-hour round trip commute, 3 days a week to see my child. These are the details that they conceal from the public.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, where is the proof that they are trying to help reunify or doing anything in the best interest of the child? Like, what money have they put into the child and bringing the family together? How much money have they put into these tactics to destroy the family unit? So 4 hours round trip, 2 hours to see my child,
the trip was by bus,
and after lunch. The 7 hours each of 3 days. So how does somebody work and provide food and shelter for themselves and for their family when they are maliciously, I can say that they maliciously did that. There was somebody who is responsible for making ethical decisions over human beings. And so I might not know who that specific person is, but anybody who makes such a terrible decision like that cannot be done in negligence. How can someone, that doesn't make any sense. That's malicious. Like, they moved me very far away. And then, so even though I had money, these situations, these scenarios that they would set up were extremely destructive to my finances. So a normal asylum seeker doesn't have a right to release, a right to work. They cannot afford to get to the child. But I would pay, it was something like £60 each way to get to my child. There were a lot of different, that's when I did it by Uber, because it was so disorienting to do these complex commutes through all these different because
Yeah,
it
because
was a remote location that they moved me to. They moved me to Dudley,
Yeah, Christine, because
away from a train station.
I can understand that you have to get a Uber, because I remember that when I was in Southampton, you are going through hell in your mind. You are not with your son, and it's impossible to deal. Where is this location? And go and find where is this, and what's the bus, and this and that. And you don't want to get lost. You don't want to create more situations. So you get a Uber, and that is so expensive that
they wouldn't allow me contracts to a long-term phone contract. So I didn't have the normal internet speed that other people with the ability to get a contract would have. So to get a phone contract like that, you have to have an address that you can use. So they didn't give you an address where you could use it that way, and they wouldn't give you they took my password away, so I wasn't able to do things like that.
Now, how obviously this is not if you can know or not, I don't know, even if you put some time into investigate this, but how these Serco, how do they make money on holding you? I know that will make money from your son because they put him for adoption, but how do they make money on holding you in there?
Yeah, so Estelle Hogan, she was a Serco employee. She told me that they were essentially trained to identify us as pound signs. So we were money signs to them. Each head count represented an amount of money.
So the government is paying them to keep refugees, and that's why you cannot go and ask for help, and they say that you are a missing person because you represent money for them.
Yeah, so Serco has a contract with the United Kindgom, where they're supposed to give food, housing, to asylum seekers. But in this contract, they don't allow you to see the contract that I know of. Maybe it's somewhere online, but they turned around in my situation. They were responsible for food and shelter, and then they would turn around and they would coerce a situation where they held me responsible for food without allowing me to get a fridge, without allowing me to get, they wouldn't allow me to pay for these things myself. When they found out that I had money, because I was very upfront about that very immediately, and I was just trying to figure out how to help myself in this prison system that was very destructive.
So
they were like, "Oh, she has money."
Can you say what is on this picture?
So that was during quarantine where we couldn't meet face to face, and this was actually so they gave us food at the door during the 10 days. Yeah. But that's normal people food, and some of it's spicy. So it's still not appropriate for a child, but that was, I don't know.
Yeah, it's so simple, isn't it? If you're not used to eat spicy food,
for a child,
you don't want to eat that. That's a beautiful video of you too.
Thank you. Outside of asylum. So that was in one of my Airbnbs.
And you look so pretty, and you both is.
Thank you.
It's you can see that there is joy, and now in here it's hot in that place, I suppose.
That was that same hotel during quarantine. So that was during quarantine.
And
so that eating, how do you eat with a child? You can't travel with your Vitamix. You can't travel with a high chair. So he was having eating difficulties. He was constipated, and
were they giving nappies for him?
It's been such a while. At that location,
in general,
they did.
Yeah, so they nappies or.
So they did actually do nappies at both locations, not the third look. So
this is actually the conditions that you have been in. Mold, horrible, And
in the short-term location, they actually did give nappies.
that's all right, Christine. No.
Yeah, it's so long since
that's all right.
Like,
that's all right.
they were pretty consistent with nappies at the Coventry Hill Hotel location. They had some nappies, not consistently at the 10-day quarantine place, but yeah.
You know, Christine, if a social worker can use these to take children, they would. But when you were in there and saying this is not healthy for my son, they completely ignore you.
Absolutely. So they would ignore the problem and then falsify that there was some other problem other than the problem I was reporting, and they would just dig for information to falsify some other.
Now, on the video, you have this picture. What do you want to say about this?
Okay, so we were forced to move 8 times in 4.5 months. So when the mold happened, and I got that letter from Birmingham Children's Hospital, it takes a little bit of time to acclimate to a new and to move. So first I had a Airbnb for a week near Birmingham Children's Hospital. It had some stairs that were difficult with a child, but it was an amazing improvement. So then I moved to another Airbnb in Coventry, closer to the asylum location, hoping to try to figure out a solution to the mold. And so while I was there, there were just, you just have normal access issues. Like normally when you find a place, you have a normal, reasonable amount of time to be able to verify that this is suitable for a child. And so at last minute, I had to get emergency housing, an Airbnb. And so so the location at 1 Alma Street, which is like a dorm turned into an Airbnb, but it had studios, great storage space, a cooking facility without crazy stairs, no mold. I mean, they had an elevator, easy access to groceries practically across the street. And it was, it suited our needs. But they didn't have any air conditioning, and the pipes in the building heated the place up. So we endured 90-degree temperatures. Yeah. And so there were some systemic issues on the Airbnb side. But so I worked through that, and I immediately got a air conditioner. So I purchased an air conditioner, installed it myself. And so I finally get that sorted, and you can see that in the video where the police steal my child. And so like we're perfectly fine, and I've worked through all the issues, and like I'm very independent, and they're trying to coerce us back into the hazards. So and then like I mentioned, trying to get my passports, and they falsified me a threat to flee. So they had no reason to suspect that I was a flight risk.
From the video that you put on YouTube, did you get anyone contacted by any entity of human rights or anything at all? Like, I don't know, like we used to hear United Nations, and there is so many entities to protect human rights, and there is so many people, like in Portugal there is people that they are famous and they represent the United Nations. And has anyone contacted you to help you?
No, I felt pretty isolated from help. So I've not been able to figure that out. I reached out to many solicitors and lawyers in the UK, the US. I've not found someone to be able to help us.
It's hard. It's really hard. I know. First is the general public that do not believe us. They do not want to see even what we have been through. They don't want to hear what we have to say, because in the moment that they are going to even believe that is the police, is the social services, they are taking our children, so then they are like, in what are you going to believe now? They will have to flip. They will have to come out of the dreamland, isn't it? It's that representation that there is in the movie of the Matrix, the truth or the dreamland.
Yeah, there's similarities to the Holocaust. So in that situation with the Holocaust, everyone knew that there were large amounts of people in these concentration camps. So they've improved their tactics with how to cover that up. So you don't. They use the guise of child protection.
So if they have done this to an American citizen, I cannot imagine what they will do to all that single woman that they come with the children from countries from where they don't speak English, because you speak English. You are American. And it's like, if America does not protect you, and if they are not afraid of America, what are they going to do to people from Ethiopia, from Nigeria, from Middle East, from so many refugees? If they go to the UK, and they will have to take their children. They will profit from the children. They will starve the woman, because no one is going to ask them questions. If they are not afraid of America, isn't it? They're not afraid of all these countries. So.
Yeah, so when I report to the FBI and the police, human trafficking, international human trafficking, so I ask, please substantiate the claim that, like, my child was supposed to be removed from me. Show me any piece of evidence. And they are very vague in their response. They just, their answer is essentially, authorities can't do any wrong. And I'm like, so you're saying that there's no history that authorities have ever done any wrong? And I'm like, I don't think you understand that is a fixated delusional belief, because the facts show that there is a history of wrongdoing. Sometimes there's criminal activity by the authorities. That's just facts.
Yeah.
So how is it that we can, this delusion is just such a social norm?
Yeah.
Of
yeah. Christine, I want to say to the audience as well that what we have been through is so horrible that when it's obvious the crime that they have committed, sometimes I do it myself in the videos, I smile, I smirk, because it is so painful that I think that our own brain tries to protect us from the pain.
Coping mechanism.
So I don't know if we dissociated from the pain or whatever it is, because I have been told in a video that a mother is saying such a horrific thing, and I was smiling, and people, they didn't like it. So
it's a coping mechanism. Like, what can you do? It's so twisted.
Yeah.
It's such a joke. It really is a joke.
It's obvious, isn't it? It's so obvious. So, Christine, I know that you are still fighting back. I wish you the best. I really would like to keep in touch with you, because I want to know how the things are with you, and obviously it's a nightmare that you have been through. You are a very strong mother, because you have been through hell, but you are still here. You are standing. You are giving voice to your son, and I cannot even imagine what you have been through in the psychiatric ward. I'm sure that they played with your mind. They have done dirty games with your mind. I have been through that, and has not been 3 months like you. And what would you like to say to someone else that is going through the same? Because I'm sure that you are not the first person. You are not the first American. They are doing this to other people. And what do you think that we can do as mothers trying to get us children back?
Trust your instinct. Protect your data. Don't trust strangers that pretend to be there for child protection. Document everything. There's a OTTER dot, I don't know if it's IO, but you can Google it. It transcribes all your audio recordings. They will say don't audio record them, but it's lawful to audio record them, and you don't tell them that you're audio recording them in the United Kingdom. What they're doing is unlawful. Try to have as many witnesses as possible. Try not to be isolated. And if you're targeted and you have the financial means to get out of the United Kingdom, do so.
Yeah.
Do so before they take your child, because it's impossible to get your child back. Like, almost impossible. It's an impossible feat. So it's so much better to do it preventatively. Get out.
Yeah. I had to ask you if you have been targeted somehow from your professional field, or if you have been in touch with anything from the government and for some reason you have been targeted. And you told me no, there is nothing that can explain this.
So it was that malicious man. So I was targeted by a stalker who was trying to blackmail me. So he was trying to create this stigma against me that I was a criminal, that I was unfit to parent my child. So he has a conviction and sentencing with Albany Supreme Court for defrauding the government, charges of false filing an instrument. He altered a government document, created this forgery, and knowingly false filed it with the government to get out of charges. So he went to prison for that. And so that's how I was targeted. So this man had a history of defrauding the government to imprison innocent victims. So I wasn't the first victim.
So do you think that the American government could be punishing you as well because of that?
I don't actually. They just don't. They have a lot of blind spots. There's a lot of systemic issues. So by design, there is somebody up in the top that should know better and isn't doing better. But I mean, they're just not. I would say, with my background in electrical engineering, I went to a data edge conference in UC Berkeley. I would say that we need more. There's like a data revolution. Artificial intelligence is exploding, and AI can be used for harm or it can be used for good. And so people in a position of power, with the authority to make these decisions that harm people, there's marginal error. So I mean, these decisions that they make affect many, many people, and there's always this marginalized error that causes harm to people. And so they're not being held accountable for that marginal error. So I feel, I know that we should do better. We should approach it with accuracy, removing that error of harm. So it's an error of harm. So stalking is a felony crime that is rarely understood by most stakeholders in government. Police, expert witnesses, judges, lawyers, they do not understand stalking. And it's rarely prosecuted as a felony crime that it is. It's often dropped to misdemeanor harassment. And they're starting to talk about this on Netflix and share the problems of stalking. And so it's a blind spot. And the government is a government problem. Mm-hmm. It's a government problem. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying that. It's just such extreme negligence at this time. Like, with the technology that we have available, we know better, but we're not doing better. Mm-hmm. And then that turned into. So I mean, that man, David Bond, he is a malicious stalker. So I can prove his malice intent. And then there's all these blind spots and then there's patriarchal biases inherent in our government procedures. So, for some reason, without any evidence to substantiate his claims, he's able to leverage very serious violence by police, social services, and courts internationally. So, and then I felt, getting away from that problem, like getting away from one predator, you attract another predator. I fell into this other predator named Serco. So I've seen different numbers, but I've read they revenue $2.4 billion a year, known for unethical business practices. They're preying on those most vulnerable people. They are making massive profits through what is essentially human trafficking of these people.
Were you able to get help?
Sorry. Go ahead.
Were you able to make friends with someone in the same situation as you? Do you know that other people I don't know if the language would allow it, but did you see any other babies on the same situation as you, any other vulnerable woman? Or do you know now any other case similar to yours in UK?
I have looked for those kinds of things. So in the hotel that we were in, there were about 100 people. They were the majority, almost all of them were single athletic men that could travel far distances in the cold without a baby. I only saw maybe 2 families in the 3 months I was at that Coventry Hill hotel. And then there was one single mother with a child, a newborn child. She couldn't speak English. I tried to reach out and network. She was so afraid. She spent a lot of time in her room, and we couldn't network. She was too afraid. And so I did think about that. I was like, I can speak English. She can't speak English. But so there was, you'll hear about stories in the news. There was a child who died in the asylum system because of the mold. So there's an news article about that. I found a research article, like a journal, a study that was done on asylum seekers. And so they talked about, it validated, like, what my experience, the access to food, the schedules, like, when children are on a certain schedule. If they're sleeping and they offer you food, then you go without food because your child is sleeping, you can't access the food. It validated exactly what was happening to me. So, this is a known problem that they know about, and they are, is more than just negligent. They are malicious. These are malicious contracts.
You have not
criminal intent.
You have not been sexually abused. You speak English, but that mother that does not speak English, if she is raped, either from the people that they work on that corporation, either from that athletic men that they are living on that building, that woman, she cannot scream for help because she doesn't speak English. Because a mother with a baby, when she's put in a place with young men,
no background checks,
you are really creating the recipe for this disaster. And let me ask you this. You answer if you want. Have you been sexually abused on that place?
I was stopped, but I was not sexually abused. So there was a man who continually called me while I was there with my child, and then he would come to my door repeatedly. And I told him I wasn't interested. I told him that I might have made an excuse that, I have a boyfriend, I'm seeing someone, and he very confidently told me, no, you don't. So I tried, I reported these things. But there were other weird situations that were created. When you create this hopeless situation, Serco creates this hopeless situation. There's all these single men, and so in the military, in boot camp, you come together in unity to solve problems. So in boot camp for the Air Force, doing laundry, folding 6-inch square shirts,
Yeah.
Cleaning with no dust. So I mean, these crazy things, these impossible inspections. But from that experience, that's what you're supposed to do in that situation. You unify. And so I was trying to unify with the men and get on the same team, try to help and like give and take in a safe way. And that's a little complicated. So I had to make sure that I wasn't put into any kind of situations that would endanger me. But being around all these single men and then needing their help to access food was weird because I was trying to be helpful without any of that. And I made that very clear. I was not interested in dating. Nothing like that. But even though I made my intentions very clear, I wanted to give and take and please help me with food. They started to leverage food in a sexual way. So like as soon as I saw that, I said no. But looking back at things, what would have been better?
My God. No. You have done always your best. You have done always your best. And
if I had done that, if I had allowed the exploitation of myself for food, I might still have my child.
Christine, you cannot say that because you cannot not say that. The people that are there to support you, they betray you. They took advantage of you and they destroy your life. And God protect your son, but they destroy children's lives. And they create people full of problems in life because they will commit suicide in the future, they will rob, they will kill people, because it's missing me the word in English, but in Portuguese is delinquente. And so they are creating empty people, empty souls, because of the pain of losing a mother. And it is so hard that I only pray for our children that they will be strong on their mind to do always the correct thing and to protect themselves and to be strong to go and find us, because we are not giving up when we are looking for our children. My son is 8 years old now. Your son is 4.
Correct.
I know that we are not giving up, and I just ask for the protection of God to bring our children back, because I know that He is not the one that is never leaving us alone. For some reason we have been chosen for this fight. For some reason we have been chosen to give voice to these children, or what these criminals they are doing. Christine, before finish, I will leave you to say the last words. What do you want from this video? How can people who can help you? What's the next step? What do you want to say at last, please?
It is so detailed. It really does take a lot of time and effort to research each case if we approach it, I feel like there's different ways to approach a problem. So if we approach a case as, the authorities do not do any wrong, that's a problem. But if we approach a case as like, where is the evidence that this child should have ever been taken? That does not exist. So why are we jumping over that and into this, and then pretending like it's a complex problem when it's not? Like, it has to have a beginning. It has to meet a threshold of harm, actual harm, and that doesn't exist. I mean, there's a clear pattern that the United Kingdom is well known for having a history of illegal adoptions. So how is it that they have a clear history of illegal adoptions, and yet we as a society, we still suffer from the delusional belief that the authorities can do no wrong? Just being able to talk about this is very empowering. It's really like working through that brainwashing, because there's a lot of tactics. Getting, warning people before it happens, and so that they can identify these signs of human trafficking.
And in America, it's not social services, it's not SS, it's CPS, isn't it? There is a lot of videos of them doing exactly the same with the children. There is prisons where there are young kids in prisons, and those prisons, they are corporations, so they are making money on the imprisonment of children. So it's all a bit, I was going to swear, it's all...
Yeah, it's a structure of people, processes. And so that's another thing. It's like when you have this structure of people making these decisions against a family, why, there's all these different pieces of alleged, this hearsay from each of these stakeholders of these authorities. How do we validate that? How do we hold them accountable? I'm not as familiar with it in the US, but in the UK...
Christine, I really want that. I will send this video now to some people that they are in America, some contacts that I have. And I really hope that the people that they have bloggers and YouTube channels that they speak about this matter, they will contact you. They will give you voice, and we can help each other, and you can expose more your case in a way that you can get your son back. I really hope that you'll be able to find your son. And there is a name that keeps being on my mind, and there is a guy that I really want you to get in contact with him, and I think I have the hope that the guy would be able to give voice to the children and to the mothers, and that name is Tucker Carlson. Why not?
Please reach out. I'll try to put in an email.
Hopefully this guy, once you will know about these things, you will have the courage to give voice to the mothers, because this is a crime, this is a genocide. Christine, thank you so much for trusting me, and thank you so much for reaching out. It is my pleasure, if it's the correct word, because I've seen your videos, and now when you contact me, I was very surprised and happy, if it's the correct word, to know that you know about me, and you trust me to do this interview. And because I've seen your mother, I heard your mother, I've seen your videos, and I can relate to what you have been through. Christine, I wish you all the best, and please be in touch keep in touch, and be strong. I know you are a strong person. They have tried to destroy you and your soul, but you are still here.
Thank you. I love your energy. The same. I was sent your videos because of what I was going through. And at first, it was way too painful to get very far in your videos. I immediately started to cry.
Yeah.
Eventually, like a year later, I was able to go through many of your videos. And you have such incredible strength. So I love what you're doing. And when you go through something so traumatic like this, it's so hard to reconnect in anything that feels anything as strong as this. So it's just a natural instinct to be a part of this cause. And it's just so I really look forward to helping in whatever way I can. And my background being in electrical engineering, I'm taking machine learning, and I am constantly trying to improve my skills with artificial intelligence and like merging all these different AI tools to advocate for our story, to get our story out there in a way to story tell our stories in the most effective way possible.
Thank
And
you.
so
Yes.
maybe I'm hoping that we can start doing that for other stories.
Yes.
Too. I love what you're doing.
Yes, and I'm sure that we can work together and give voice to our little ones. And Christine, carry on being strong. I know that you are strong, and it's my pleasure. And I hope these will help.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you, Christine. Bye bye. All the best.